welcome to my channel. I'm Katie. This is Katie's Bookish Escape, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2019. Okay, well, I have not posted a video in like 6 months, so sorry about that, booktube. I probably have it more makeup in 6 months too, so yeah, sorry. I don't know what to tell you, but I really wanted to get on here and start talking about my favorite books that I've been reading. I've still been reading, I just haven't been filming videos, so here we go. Okay, at number 10, we have The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. Now, this book is nonfiction. It is about women who worked in factories painting radium paint onto watches, pocket watches that would be used during wartime so that soldiers could see in the dark. And that was extremely helpful for the cause, and they all thought that they're, helping for the cause and they're doing good work. But the way they would do it, first off, you're probably like, oh my god, radium? Yeah, they didn't know about the harmful effects of radium. So the way they would do it was lick, dip, paint. Or maybe it was dip, lick, paint. Yeah. Okay. So they would dip it in the radium powder, lick the edge of the brush, like the tip, so it would be fine enough, and then paint. So they were actually ingesting radium. So the whole book is about how these women's lives were affected by that, which was really bad because radium poisoning is really bad. It was very graphic at times, but the way it was told by Kate Moore, the narration was so well done. I never was bored for a second, and it was disturbing, but I loved hearing about all the perseverance that the women went through to make sure that those companies paid for hiding the facts that they hid. Number 9 is my most carefree book on the list, and it is Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I read this book in January of 2019, I think, and for a YA contemporary romance story, it's my favorite one that I've ever read. It really had great moments about mother-daughter, about family aspects, father-daughter, and it just really pulled on my heartstrings. It's more than just a, here's an annoying girl, here's a boy, they get together. It's much more than that and more convoluted, and I appreciated that and I loved it. I also like her other book, Love and Luck, and she has a new one coming out called Love and Olives, which takes place in Greece. And I'm really excited to read that one because I've been to Greece, so yay. Then at number 8, we have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Now, I love this book because it is an amazing examination of the human psychology when we're going through grief and experiencing that and the loss of someone. It is not as horrific as you would think for a Stephen King novel, though there are definitely horror elements and there are parts where it is very horror. But as for the entirety of the book, it's not just here's horror. That's not how it is. It creeps up in elements. It's more about human psychology than it is about zombie cats. Regardless of what the cover is telling you. This amazing cover from the 80s, I love it. I got this at my used bookstore. So, I love it. If you like examinations of human thought in fiction, you may enjoy this. Okay, number 7 is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. I read all 3 of them last year. And I loved the first book. I think the first book as a standalone would have been great too. So, and I'm sure he probably wrote that knowing funding, you never know. I know V. Schwab always is I always read it so it could be done, but also so I can continue. And I feel like the first book of the Mistborn series kind of acts like that. So what I really loved about this book was I love revolutions. I majored in history in college. I have a bachelor's in history, and instead of picking an area as my expertise, I picked a theme, and that theme was war, revolution, and social change. So I love revolution stories, and that's what this first book is. and it made me really fall in love with the characters. And also Kelsier is my favorite character, and he's most prominent in book 1. At number 6 is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and I know I'm like the last person in the world to have read this book, but man, I loved it. It really packs a punch, and it really shows like that conflict between culture of when people move from one culture and then try to like assimilate into Western culture, and the issues that they have and between like the first generation and the next generation. In addition to that, I just think the story is great. I know there's some critiques, like I know one Goodreads review I read said something like, well, people will use this book as an excuse to be like, I'm an expert on the area. I don't know anyone who does that. Like, I don't understand how that's a critique. Just because I read a book that takes place in Afghanistan does not mean I'm any kind of expert on Afghanistan. And I don't know anyone who even acts like that's true. But I don't know, maybe I'm weird. I really love the story. There were parts where, yes, it was like, what's it called? Like Deus Ex Machina. But it's okay. I still liked it. So like there were parts that seemed a little contrived, but overall the story was incredible. I love the characters. I love the conflict you feel about the main character being the protagonist, but also not always making good choices. In fact, not even making or being negligent. So I really enjoyed that. I love flawed main characters. I think it makes the story more interesting. At number 5, we have Cythe by Neil Shusterman. I've read the entire Cythe trilogy. I finished the total in 2020 this year though, so that won't be on here and I'm not talking about it. But Cythe is the only one that made it onto this list. Thunderhead, I liked it. It's in my top 19, but it wasn't in my top 10. So Cythe is the first book in the Arc of the Cythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman. It's set in kind of like a dystopian society, not dystopian, utopian society, because they have like cured cancer and everything is run by the Cloud. And so the Cloud, or the Thunderhead, it basically replaces anything that people don't have. You have crappy parents, well, the Thunderhead nurtures you. You don't have enough food, well, everyone gets rations for food. There's no way for anyone to not be able to get what they need. So the problem is now overpopulation can lead to the destruction of mankind because of resources. So in order to stop the society from coming to a downfall, there is a group of people called Cythe. So Scythes are chosen, and then their career is basically to glean people, and gleaning, it means permanent death. You can easily die, but you get brought back to life. You have certain things in your body that will heal you, but when a Cythe gleans you, that's permanent. So the story is about this one Cythe, and he takes on two young apprentices, and then it's like their story. That's what Cythe's about. And then Thunderhead digs deeper and more into the world building aspect of it, and the toll is the final part. So I love Cythe. I think the idea is amazing. I think the whole premise of the book and the plot is very unique and one of a kind, as far as I've seen. Number 4 is another Brandon Sanderson book, and that is The Well of Ascension. It is the second book in the Miss Moore series. I have a dedicated review, which I will link in the eye. And I love the second book. It's my favorite of the 3. I think it is great. There's a lot of political intrigue, there's backstabbing, there's turns, there's a battle that's as like epic as the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers. I loved it. It really took these characters that we got to know in the first book and really led me to like them even more, while having a wonderful like plot driven story of betrayal and political allegiance and all that good stuff that I like. History person. Okay, number 3 on my list is The Poppy War by Rebecca Kwong. And I love this book. This book and The Dragon Republic, which is her second book in this series, though I finished it only like a week ago, so it couldn't make the 2019 list, are so freaking good. So first off, I love this cover, but at no point do I recall Ren using a bow and arrow. Just saying that out loud. She uses a sword and magic. But yeah, so I don't know why she has a bow and arrow on the cover, but whatever. It's gorgeous. The Poppy War is about a young girl in what is called Nakata, but it's China. This story is based off of 20th century Chinese history, and having studied 20th century Chinese history, it makes it really scary to read because I know which character is based off of who, and so I know that like certain characters are eventually not going to be getting along, but like seeing how it unfolds in the way she does it, and I'm like still rooting for them even though I know they're not going to be on the same side, is crazy. This is an adult fantasy, and the magic system is very unique in the sense that it involves like shamanism, which involves opium, which is probably like very taboo. Not probably. That's very taboo. Like you wouldn't have that in a YA book because people don't want to be like, yeah, drugs. But Rebecca Kwong's really looked into a lot of like the psychological aspects of using psychological enhancing drugs and in a way to show like how religions use that. I'm not wording this as well as I could. Watch her interview with Daniel Green if you want to know more. She did a great interview with him and explained it much better than I am right now. But so that and the magic system has to do around with that. The Chinese or the Nakata are kind of at war with the Muganese, or like at the beginning they're at least like tension. The Muganese are basically the Japanese people, and so the first book's all about how Ren goes into schooling to be a soldier. And then how she ends schooling and how the war gets worse. And it's really just the introduction of the trilogy, but the way it's done is so great. I loved it. The school setting is awesome. Her teacher and mentor is freaking hilarious. I love him. He's one of my favorite characters. There's a great like non-romantic friendship with her best friend Kite. And I love these books so much. Highly recommend if you like adult fantasy. Major trigger warning for everything, because there is a part in here that's based off the real rape in Nanking, and that had to do with a lot of rape and murder. So it's very, very graphic. So if that's not your thing, not that that is anyone's thing, but if you can't handle that and you know that, you might not want to pick this one up. Number 2 is Us Against You by Fredrik Backman. Fredrik Backman is a Swedish writer, and Us Against You is the second book in the Beartown series that he's writing. And so this series takes place in a town called Beartown, and it's supposed to be in like the forest of Sweden. It's a very isolated town. The catchphrase for the town is "Bear shits in the wood, everyone else shits on Beartown." And Beartown is a hockey town. Everyone's obsessed with the hockey teams, or their hockey team. And so the first book is based off of something horrible happens, and it's caused by one of the hockey players, and everyone kind of has to come to terms with their, like, this person who they, like, bred to worship and look up to has done something horrible, and how the town reacts to that. So Us Against You is kind of the aftermath of how people are still reacting to that and still not getting over it, and how sports rivalries and like town rivalries can actually like go a lot harder and a lot more painfully than they're intended to when you look at it and you're like, it's just hockey. Well, not always. You know, there's a lot more cultural and societal problems embedded within that. Underlying issues. So Us Against You is a sequel, and I loved it so much. I can't really say a lot about it other than what I already did, because, you know, been telling you stuff about the first book. So what could the first one on my list be? Well, the first book in Beartown, which is Beartown by Frederick Backman. So I just explained what Beartown is about, but I think the amazing thing about Beartown, and I have a whole dedicated review about why you should read this book, is that it really shows every kind of perspective that someone can have on like rape allegations and how everyone is affected by it, and that no one's really coming from a place of hate. Sadly, I wouldn't even say, please don't kill me for this, I wouldn't even say the rapist is coming from a place of hate. The rapist is messed up and coming from a bad place, but it really does also humanize the rapist. And I'm not saying, I don't feel for the rapist, don't give me that. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But it really does make you wonder how society breeds people who can commit stuff like rape and commit crimes like that. And I think it does an impeccable job of doing that. There are so many points of views in this book, and I love when there's a large cast of characters. That's like, bam, my favorite kind of thing. So I love that, and you get it in this book. And it's not preachy. It kind of just shows you, here's how everyone's affected, here's how everyone's dealing with this, here's everyone character's thoughts, leaving you to kind of come up with, where do you lie on this spectrum? How can you be a better person to society? And it makes you examine that in a non-judgmental way. So yeah, that was my number one, Beartown. Love it. All right, so this has been my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2019. If you want to see more of my videos, subscribe. And if you like this, please give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you later. Bye.